Okay, Tanya, you said, I have three things that I'm holding: diversity and inclusion, circle facilitation, and rest practices. I hear you speak a lot about niching, so I'm wondering how to do so when they're also diverse themselves. Okay, Tanya, are you here?
I am here, yes.
Hello, hello. Where are you zooming in from?
I'm in the UK,
Where in the UK are you from?
Berkshire.
Oh,
Yeah.
where's that?
It's near Reading, Windsor,
Okay,
Heathrow area. Yeah.
okay,
I
okay.
think you went through this. You'd have gone through it to
I
get back
did.
to.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so three. So okay, so diversity and inclusion, circle facilitation, and rest practices. Um, are they totally different crowds that come to it?
Yeah. So the diversity and inclusion work is generally for people who are facilitating spaces, so circle facilitators, holders, and then the rest practice. And what I didn't also put on there was grief works. Oh, somebody's just down the road, Melanie. Let's chat. um, I also hold grief rituals as well. Um, and they tend to be, some people are facilitating and some are coming as participants in a different way, more sort of everyday, I guess. And then you've got people who are holding the spaces as well. Also like wellness organizations as well I go into, and I've been doing pretty well through word of mouth for that sort of work, but now I'm like, there's so many different threads that it's like knowing what to put on my website, knowing what to say I do when there's all these threads. It's like, who am I speaking to when there's different audiences?
Yeah. Well, okay. So the real question here for all of us is, what do we want to be known for? Right?
Mm.
You're at a party, somebody's talking about you. What do you want them to say that the other person would actually understand? Um, because they're going to say one thing,
Yeah.
right? They're not going to remember everything. They're not going to say, oh, Jimmy does this, 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 and then a little bit of this on Saturdays. They don't have that. The way that people remember us, the way that we remember people is usually one thing, especially when it's new. I mean, if people get to know you over the years, they might be able to be a little bit more elaborate, but generally, when people hear about us and when they talk about us, there's one thing. Evidence of this is, look in your phone and the hilarious nicknames you give people that you meet. Yeah. You remember them for their glasses. You remember them for their funny dad jokes, or it's like Tommy Burritos because you met him at a burrito place. And that's so this is what happens with our business. And so then if we have too many things, trouble, obviously.
Mm.
You know,
So the one thing that links everything together is I hold circles.
okay. Now let me ask you this. Why does all of this work matter? What is all of this work about for you? Like why do you do all this work?
Liberation. So that's the first word that comes. So it's self-liberation and liberation within groups of people. So some of the work that I've been doing is around anti-racism, diversity and inclusion. So that's around, racial liberation. Um, yeah. And to me, it's about awakening a heart. It's awakening a human heart.
Okay. So one thing is, you probably already do, but that's something just to talk about all the time. Talk about those things on social media, become known for that. Become known for the bigger why. Do you know Simon Sinek's work? Okay, so there's two books I'd recommend. One is called Start with Why, and the other one's called Find Your Why, both by Simon Sinek, Sinek. He's also got a YouTube called How Great Leaders Inspire, 20 minutes worth watching. But there's this idea that people don't just buy what we do, they buy why we do it. Yeah. And I think if I don't know if you could say, I hold circles, you know, that are all about liberating the human heart, or I think it's probably not worded as well as it could be. but you talk about that, and then you talk about why that matters. Like what, and you know, what does liberation mean? Liberated from what? For
Mm,
what purpose? Um,
mm,
why the heart? What is it about the human heart? What is it that traps the human heart that, it needs to be liberated from? All that stuff. Um, and then, so you can become known for the why. Now, at a
mm,
certain point, people still going to, well, okay, what do you do? Um, but it's something we can lean on as we're in the process of honing the other pieces. If you can't figure out the who exactly, or the what, there's so many things, you might lean on the why and just talk about that.
mm.
Become known for that.
Yeah.
On social media, you share memes and quotes and content related to that, even though it may not have anything to do directly with the facilitation work, but it's about that theme. And you share stories, from all the work that you do, and here's how this ties to these themes. What does circles have to do with liberation? Why do you
Mm,
choose circles? Why not, lectures? Why not all the other formats that you could have? Why not one-on-one? Why circles? What is it about a circle? What does that have to do with the human heart? So if you imagine a Venn diagram, circles, human heart, liberation, that might be a little exercise that would be useful to do is, and for everybody, it's worth thinking about in your business, what are the core elements, the kind of core pillars, that might be the equivalent for you. Because then when you take it, you say, okay, why do each of those circles matter? Like what happens if we have these two circles, but not this circle? What happens if you get sort of liberation, but your heart isn't open, and you like maybe that, and you're doing circles. Well, maybe that becomes an intellectual discussion, for example. It's a very academic, rational discussion. You're sitting in a circle, it's very fair, but there's no heart there. You know, there's no love in it. And what happens
mm,
if open heart, but you're not liberated? Uh, maybe then that's and maybe liberation is some kind of analysis. I don't know. You get what I'm saying. But you start to just, and then you think, is there another circle missing? Do I need to add something? And then that becomes so much of the content of your share of a signature workshop. It's talking about that kind of thing.
mm.
Uh, and then, yeah, and then also, I mean, rest, right? So there's, right, liberation, rest, circle, heart, diversity. It's just interesting. But always like, what do they all have in common? What's the role that they play? And then it's like, here's what I see that people need. Okay. But then here's what I would say in terms of how you tie it back to the niche. So let's say you get this Venn diagram with 4 or 5 circles. You're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, uh, what do they have in common? But then the next step is you say, if these things were all missing from people's lives, what would the symptoms be? You know, if somebody lived in a life without any kind of diversity and inclusion, they didn't have any circles that they could be in, they weren't resting, they weren't liberated, their heart wasn't open, whatever it is, what would the symptoms be? And that starts to give you the beginnings of Island A. Yeah. And you say, okay, so this person is experiencing this particular constellation of symptoms. And then you might hone in, you might say, oh, out of all of those symptoms, these are the ones that I'm really most passionate about helping people with. And you can start to hone in a bit there. I would recommend if you go to marketingforhippies.com/puttering prep, PUTTERING there's a bunch of free exercises around ideal client, which may
Mm.
also help hone this. Um, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's just it's so simple at some level. I'm like, it was just everything felt out there, and even just bringing it in and going, what's the commonality between it all? What brings it together? Circles, okay, and what's liberation, and why do we want that? Um, and I've gone from feeling overwhelmed in like probably less than 5 minutes to going, yeah, right. This
Good.
feels good. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a step. You know, these things are just baby steps.
Mm,
But every step you take, then you can see a little further. So
yeah. It's like the next bit, and then yeah. Thank
yes,
you so much.
you're
Really
welcome.
appreciate it. Thank you.